I am, and forever shall be, a nerd. Shocking, I know, it's a mask I wear well. However, if you met my parents for even a short amount of time, it would be no mystery how I turned out like this. My mum is the one who got me stuck on classic Doctor Who and introduced me to classic films like Alien. And my dad writes fanfiction. My dad's fanfiction history is a fascinating one. He wrote a short story about the universal implications of the retcon that brought Shazam into the DC universe after Fawcett Comics went out of business. He wrote a trilogy of screenplays revolving around the Spectre in the 2000s, more or less for the fun of it. And then there is the series he penned in 2010 called The Doctor's League, the series we will begin to read today. This series dared to ask the question, what would happen if you pushed a bunch of 2000s pop culture into one universe, with a dash of the 90s and some deadpan, sarcastic humor? The answers are actually quite a lot of fun. Let's check it out. So, what is the Doctor's League anyway? The chief inspiration for the series in my dad's mind was Alan Moore's The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. For those unaware, this is a comic book series penned by Moore that supposed that great works of Victorian literary fiction all happened in a shared universe, allowing characters from iconic works of the time to team up in the eponymous league. Members of this league included Alan Quatermain from the novel King Solomon's Mines, Mina Harker from Dracula, Dr. Jekyll, Captain Nemo, and The Invisible Man. This team starred in a few comics and also a film adaptation in 2003. We don't talk about that. Inspired by this concept of a team of heroes from different universes, my dad dared to ask, what if this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comprised of contemporary television and film characters? Thus, the Doctor's League was born, or as my dad called it before we fully fleshed it out, the 21st Century League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. We workshopped the title. So who was in my dad's Extraordinary League? Buckle in, because this is quite the list. As the name might betray, the leader of this league is the Doctor from Doctor Who, specifically the 10th Doctor. While it was already 2010 when he was underway writing the League and Series 5 of Doctor Who was well underway, my dad felt he didn't know the 11th Doctor well enough to write for him, so he fell back on the Doctor he knew the best, the 10th. So leading the roster we've got David Tennant's 10th Doctor. Who else do we have? To answer this question we may as well go through the first installment of the series, which is titled Pilot. By the way, my dad wrote this in screenplay format, so that does make reading it on camera a bit difficult, but I will read out sections where appropriate. First, let's get some good lighting going. There we go, a little nice mood lighting. Also, I will be reading off my phone for this, which isn't very cinematic, but it works. So, does anyone remember that show Heroes? The show about the superpowered people who don't really know why they got superpowers. It was on from 2006 to 2010. Well, the next character we're meeting from the Doctor's League, and the first one to be introduced in the script, is from that show, Claire Bennett. For those unfamiliar, Claire Bennett is a high school cheerleader who discovers pretty much by accident that she has an uncanny healing ability. For all intents and purposes, she cannot be killed. She heals from most, if not all, attacks, she doesn't get sick, and she basically feels no pain. Kinda badass, really. So the setup of the Doctor's League pilot goes a little something like this. Claire Bennett is relaxing at home, listening to her tunes on her CD player. It's 2009, by the way. Claire's night in, however, is ruined very quickly. Claire has decided there is nothing outside and heads back to her bed. Then, the Daleks smash their way through the window. You can't deny my dad's efficiency here. So the Daleks are here, specifically the Paradigm Daleks from Victory of the Daleks, as that had been pretty recently broadcast when this was written, and we were at the time operating under the assumption that they were sticking around. The idea here is that they'd heard about Claire Bennett's healing ability, and wanted a piece of that DNA to breed unkillable Daleks. Terrifying. Anyway, the Daleks are about to kidnap Claire for their nefarious experiments when the TARDIS materializes in her room, from which the 10th Doctor steps out. He gets Claire into the TARDIS and dematerializes, but not before the temporal stabilizer is damaged by Dalek fire, stranding the Doctor in 2009. It's okay, you're safe for the moment. Alright, but safe where? And who are you again? Dr. Someone? Just the Doctor. Doctor Who? Dr. Savannah? Dr. Evil? Dr. Cockroach? I love that my dad swung for a Monsters vs. Aliens reference here. The Doctor and Claire materialize on Baffin Island, a tiny place in the Arctic Circle, so the Doctor can make some repairs. Will those Dalek things be able to find us here? They can track us, yes, so I sort of took an indirect route getting here. Meaning? Well, to find us here, they'll have to track the TARDIS through Pyrovilia, Hoth, Denobula, Xandar, Magrathea, and Arrakis. Those are all planets a very long way away from Earth, so it'll keep the Daleks busy for a while. This is how you can tell that these were written just as much for my dad's amusement as they were for his kids. I'd fed him the names Pyrovilia and Denobula from Star Trek and Doctor Who, but 10-year-old me didn't know what the hell Arrakis was. From memory, my dad did debate an installment set on Arrakis, but in the end couldn't think of anything interesting for the League to do there, so he didn't do it, which Fair enough. The Doctor does some repairs, but still hasn't fixed the temporal stabilizer, and sets out recruiting a team who can help protect Claire from the Daleks should it come to a straight fight. His first port of call is Metropolis to meet the next member of my dad's league. That's right, we've got Clark Kent in the house tonight. Specifically Smallville Clark Kent to keep up with the 21st century vibe, who, as of when this was written, had not yet gotten a DUI for being under the influence of red kryptonite in an Arby's parking lot. Look, this was breaking news when I started writing the script. I promise I kept the DUI jokes to a minimum. The Doctor and Claire secure an interview with Clark at the Daily Planet with the help of the Doctor's psychic paper, and convinces him to come down to the planet basement where the TARDIS is parked. The Doctor indicates the TARDIS to Clark. There is a crack on the wall of the basement that mimics the crack pattern first seen in the 11th hour. I can't recall if the Big Bang had broadcast by the time my dad wrote this, but I think I advised him to work the crack in the wall in because it was relevant at the time. It did come in handy though, Amy not remembering the Dalek invasion of 2009 and Victory of the Daleks because of the cracks in time became a handy way for my dad to write off any inconsistencies between universes. Thank you, Stephen Moffat. The Doctor and Clark bond over being the survivors of destroyed planets, then the Doctor asks Clark to help protect Claire. Being the Man of Steel, Clark immediately accepts. Protecting someone in danger is Superman's main calling after all. Clark's membership in the team secured, the trio leave to pick up the next member of their team, landing at New York University. The next member of our team joining us is Peter Parker, specifically the Peter Parker from Sam Raimi's trilogy. As the Doctor is stuck in 2009 at the moment, this does mean that this is set a couple of years after Spider-Man 3, which gave my dad the opportunity to suggest that Peter is working on his PhD, well on his way to becoming Dr. Peter Parker. Nice. The Doctor wants to recruit Peter not just for his abilities in protecting Claire, but also for his scientific acumen and his spider sense. After all, having even a moment's forewarning that the Daleks are coming would be crucial in protecting Claire. Out of scientific curiosity as much as an interest in protecting Claire, Peter joins as well. Then to complete his Claire protection squad, the Doctor makes one more stop. The Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. That's right, we've got Hellboy in this. When my dad was assembling the League, he wanted a good crossover of the science fiction and the paranormal. So once he had the science fiction of superheroes like Superman, Spider-Man, and Claire Bennett, he figured he needed some supernatural representation to balance things out. Thus, the first of the supernatural-related characters to appear is Hellboy, who is basically being recruited because he can punch things into tiny bits. A handy ability to have against Daleks, and my dad figured that Dalek death rays wouldn't phase Hellboy much either. Of the recruits, Hellboy is the most skeptical of the 4 picked up so far. However, the Doctor gets an assist from Abe Sapien. Abe can read minds and detects that the Doctor means what he says. He's telling the truth. Yeah? Yes. I've never come across anything like you before, Doctor. I've heard of the Time Lords, but I always thought they were just a legend. They're all gone now. You and I, Anung and Clark here. We're all unique. We're all one of a kind. I honestly find this pretty poignant. I like that my dad decided that a bonding quality of the few members of his league was their unique existence in the universe. It's cool. Trusting Abe's word, Hellboy signs up to protect Claire as well, and the team go back to Baffin Island so that if there is a fight, at least it's away from the general public. What do these Daleks look like? Well, I described them many years ago as little green blobs in bonded polycarbide armor, and that's still pretty accurate, I'd say. Pretty sure I gave my dad that one too. 10-year-old me loved Remembrance of the Daleks. The Daleks transmat onto Baffin Island to retrieve Claire, but are quickly dispatched by Clark and Hellboy. The Daleks, not punched or heat visioned to death, beat a hasty retreat to analyze their defeat, and Hellboy declares victory over the space dustbins. But alas, their victory won't last long. We are getting close to the final 3 additions to our league. The Doctor takes the TARDIS to Cardiff so he can refuel it in the Cardiff Time Rift, having finished most of his repairs. Not being one for respecting personal space, he parks the TARDIS in the Torchwood hub. Apparently Torchwood are out of town at the moment and don't notice. I guess this is also right before Children of Earth. The Daleks easily track the TARDIS to Cardiff and are poised to attack again when a man approaches them, offering to strike a deal. I believe I am addressing the Daleks. Human, exterminate! Both Daleks fire their death rays at Alistair. He falls to the ground but gets up again, seemingly unharmed. Ah, beings after my own heart. Error! Human has not been exterminated! Well, the human has probably been exterminated, but I'm still here. This being Alistair is a demon who has come to the Daleks with a simple deal. He will possess Claire Bennett and bring her out into the open where the Daleks can take her, and in return the Daleks will do Alistair one small favor. Kill Sam and Dean Winchester, brothers and hunters. The Daleks, being pretty keen on the whole killing people thing, agree to Alistair's terms and seek out the Winchesters. Smash cut to Wisconsin. You sure it went this way? Yes, it took off as soon as it got a face full of holy water. I'm sure it went through that gap in the trees just there. Right, well, lock and load, Sammy. Gets his gun ready to fire. Let's bag us a vampire. I could make a joke about the high stakes, but hey, Sam is unimpressed. The Winchesters are in pursuit of a vampire when they come across another hunter, someone else who's picked up the trail of this monster. That hunter? Buffy Summers. Yet more evidence that my dad was writing this as much for his own entertainment as mine, because at 10 years old, I had never seen one single solitary episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Or Supernatural, really. And yes, my dad is cheating a bit with Buffy because that was largely broadcast in the 90s and not in the 21st century, but to get around that, this is a grown-up Buffy Summers who has left her hometown behind to be a hunter. The three hunters exchange introductions and Dean makes a pass at Buffy, but then the Daleks arrive, ready to make good on their deal with Alistair. The TARDIS arrives, having detected Dalek activity, and rescue Buffy and the Winchesters. However, in the process, Clark is shot with a kryptonite ray, as the Daleks have learned kryptonite. He survives and is dragged back to the TARDIS by Claire, who my dad decided can just tank a Dalek death ray because she shot several times rescuing Clark and managed to stay on her feet. So now, at last, our roster is complete. The Doctor, Claire, Clark, Peter, Hellboy, Buffy, and the Winchesters. A pretty fun lineup, really. So with the gang all together, it's time to wrap this pilot up. The Daleks want to kidnap Claire plot is more or less just a means to an end to get the band together. Once that's done, the pilot has served its purpose, more or less. So it's time to dispatch the Daleks. First, however, my dad sets up a running thread throughout the series, a lack of trust between Hellboy and the Hunters. The Hunters are suspicious of anything demon-shaped, Hellboy considers Hunters to be butchers, and leans on the fourth wall a bit with a reference to Smallville. I just need to rest. Looks closely at Dean. Do we know each other? Looks back just as carefully. No, I don't think so. You're probably right. You just remind me of someone. For those who haven't seen Smallville, Jensen Ackles was also on that show as a pedophile football coach. The TARDIS lands in the Torchwood hub again, and the crew all get out to look around. This time the Doctor has turned on Torchwood's time lock to keep the Daleks out, which my dad implies the Doctor has a far better idea of how to control than Torchwood did in Journey's End. Sam notices a series of photos. Aren't they the Cottingley fairies? Sure are. I thought those photos were fakes. It would seem not. One thing about my dad is that he's a paranormal history nerd. He loves stories like that of the Cottingley fairies, so he will work that into his writing where he can. So the Doctor's plan is this. He's going to lure the Daleks into the hub, then turn the time lock on from the outside, leaving them to be Captain Jack's problem, apparently. He sends Claire out to lure the Daleks into the trap, and Peter as well as backup. However, Alistair arrives on the scene, possesses Claire, and knocks out Peter. But instead of just handing Claire over to the Daleks, Alistair amends the deal. See, he's become aware that Hellboy is in the League, and wants to possess his body to become the ultimate demon. Alistair leads the Daleks into the hub and switches from Claire's body to Hellboy's, and makes quick work of knocking out Dean and Buffy. The Daleks shoot every which way, it's pandemonium. Interesting note, my dad explicitly states that a standard exorcism doesn't work to expel Alistair from Hellboy. However, what does work is Ruby's knife. The TLDR is that the Winchesters have a knife that can kill demons, not expel them, kill them entirely. It was given to them by somebody named Ruby. That's about all you need to know for this exercise because Sam manages to get the jump on Alistair and stabs Hellboy, killing Alistair once and for all. However, the knife doesn't kill Hellboy because he's not quite a demon? Hellboy's personality is restored, and once he walks off getting stabbed, he and Clark set upon the Daleks, destroying the last of them. However, before it's destroyed, the last Dalek manages to get a shot into the TARDIS, this time disabling the guidance system. The League are now stuck together, flying blind anywhere in time and space. Alright, so now we have our team and how they came together. Now, the real adventures can begin. Picking up immediately from the ending of the last episode, the TARDIS lands near a primary school in a small town. The team, minus the Doctor and Hellboy, venture outside to find out where they are, the other two staying behind to work on repairs. The Doctor gives them his mobile number, which I paused the Stolen Earth to give to my dad from memory, and they're off. From inside the school, one of the teachers watches the League leave the TARDIS, chewing on a Mars bar. She knows the wind is changing, and that the occupants of the TARDIS are not of this time and space. She finishes her Mars bar and enters her classroom, where her students greet her as Miss Frizzle. See, my siblings and I really liked the Magic School Bus when my dad was writing these. They were also the center of an inside joke between us that will become apparent later on. But for now, we just know that Miss Frizzle is here and that she is suspicious of the arrival of a TARDIS. The League find their way into a milk bar and Sam uses context clues to deduce that it's the 90s. Peter finds a newspaper that specifically dates the year as 1995 and names the town as Walkerville, the name of the town from the Magic School Bus series. However, Sam recognizes Walkerville as the rename of an old town, Derry, Maine. Buffy establishes that formerly Derry is a hotspot for paranormal activity and informs the non-Hunter members of the League about Pennywise. Here my dad says that Derry was renamed to Walkerville after Pennywise's final defeat. However, despite the paranormal happenings here, Peter's spider sense isn't tripping up at all. Painfully normal, he says to describe Walkerville. Claire phones the doctor to tell him what's happening, and the doctor notices that the TARDIS is detecting an energy flux in town. A good catch-all for something's up. The League head back to the TARDIS, and Peter's spider sense trips the moment he walks past the school. The team regroups, where the doctor says the energy flux is coming from the school. The doctor, Peter, and Claire head to the school posing as inspectors, while the hunters go to the library to do some research. The Winchesters wander around to the local papers. Dean picks one up. Reading headlines. Local girl wins state long jump medal. Council approves new mall development. Walkerville Fair starts this week. Geez, Sammy, this is one happening town. What were you expecting? Walkerville voted weirdest town in USA for third straight year, perhaps? You can tell my dad had particular fun writing the Winchesters. The hunters pour through some newspapers until Sam finds something that catches his eye. Local teacher gets great results. Walkerville elementary school teacher Valerie Frizzled yesterday received an award from the Walkerville Parents and Teachers Association for her outstanding work with her 4th grade class. This is gripping stuff, Sammy. Pointing to a detail in the photo. Look at the bin at her feet, Dean. Dean and Buffy peer at the photo. It's full of candy wrappers. Well, look at that. For those who are keeping track of supernatural lore, you might know where this is headed. But for those who don't know, allow me to introduce you to tricksters. Tricksters are beings of immense power who, as their name might suggest, like to do a bit of trolling. The Archangel Gabriel is one, apparently. But more relevant to this conversation, one of their more distinctive personality traits is that they eat a lot of sweets. Remember how Miss Frizzle was introduced snacking on a Mars bar? Yeah, that's right, Miss Frizzle is a trickster. But this isn't even the half of it. My dad's got one more twist in him. The Doctor, Peter, and Claire meet Miss Frizzle and her class, and Peter and the Doctor immediately clock her as not human. You're about to tell me Miss Frizzle isn't human, aren't you? Well, yes. How did you know? Oh, it's obvious to anyone who's spent 750 odd Earth years traveling through time and space. So what are we gonna do? Nothing yet. There's nothing to say that she's causing any harm. It's not like she's feeding them chips boiled in oil that boost their IQ so they can solve the fundamental equation of time and space. School reunion reference. Nice. It takes all 2 seconds for Ralphie to rat out Miss Frizzle for having a magic school bus, which if you know the Magic School Bus series at all, you know is pretty typical Ralphie activities. A little shit stirrer. It helps that Miss Frizzle had that pinball machine. Shh! Pinball machine? That sounds brilliant! Yes, it fires balls of white light and you have to split it into the colors of the rainbow and get each color into the right colored eye. This is a direct reference to one of the Magic School Bus books I had at the time, titled The Magic School Bus Makes a Rainbow. My dad had to read them to my siblings and I when we were young, so he was familiar enough with them to work them in like this. He even managed to work in some running gags from the series, such as Phoebe's pretty consistent habit of referencing her old school. It's pretty fun stuff. The Doctor, Peter, and Claire retreat to the TARDIS, but not before running into Miss Frizzle again, who says she's been teaching this class since the 1st grade. In the TARDIS, Sam gets everyone up to speed on the Hunter's suspicion that Miss Frizzle is a trickster. The Doctor expresses concern about Frizzle's attachment to this particular class of kids. Clearly, she must have a plan. You can kill a trickster with an iron stake through the heart. Messy, but it's the only thing that can hurt them. You would have fit in with the old Torchwood. Their first solution to everything was to kill it too. Comparing Dean to a Von Hartman's crew? That's a bit harsh, Doc. The Doctor sends Clark outside the TARDIS to watch the school with his X-ray vision, but Miss Frizzle senses this and clicks her fingers, sending him somewhere else. Opening the door of the TARDIS. Doctor, he's gone. Gone? Gone where? I don't know, he's just gone. He's been frizzled, I'm sure of it. Had to get one got frizzled in there. The Doctor decides it's time for action and brings the whole League to the school, Hellboy hiding under a coat to avoid too much staring. When they get inside, they find Miss Frizzle waiting for them, who has put the rest of the school to sleep. She promises that Clark is safe and that it's time to reveal herself to both her students and the Doctor's League. Hello, children. I've brought you here to meet a real-life Time Lord, Mr. Smith. Peering at the Doctor. I thought you said they were all dead. I was wrong. It's pretty rare, but it does happen occasionally. Hello, kids. Yes, I am a Time Lord and my real name is the Doctor. Just the Doctor. Wow. Miss Frizzle told us all about the Time War. The Continuum watched it, but didn't want to get involved. I was following this until now. The Continuum? You still don't really know what I am, do you? Yes, I think I do. There's nothing magic about the bus or the lizard at all, is there? It's all you. You want to fill us in? Trickster is just a name given to your species by Earthlings. You're a member of the Q Continuum, aren't you? Yep, that's right, Miss Frizzle is a Q. from Star Trek. This is the inside joke I was talking about earlier. When I was about 8 or 9, my mum got me onto The Next Generation, which was the most exciting thing in the world to me. Being the crazier episodes, the Q episodes were my favorite. How could I not love the borderline omnipotent imp? So when I'd read the Magic School Bus books with my dad, we'd make observations about the bus's powers. What if it wasn't the bus? What if it was her? I don't remember which one of me or my dad suggested that she was a Q, but we both thought it was a great idea, so obviously it was the first one my dad wanted to write up for this series. Working the trickster angle in was a matter of tying it to the hunters as well, and the Derry main stuff is basically a nice red herring. Also, this does imply that the Archangel Gabriel is a Q as well, but that hadn't happened yet in Supernatural, so we can ignore that. Having gone mask off, Miss Frizzle explains her motivation: to bring new blood to the Q continuum. Much like the main Q, as played by John Delancey, she's bored out of her mind in the continuum. She believes that new, younger Q will liven the continuum and give them something to discuss for a change, and has narrowed down her selection of the best candidates to become Q to her class at Walkerville Elementary. I don't think I want to go to anything called a Q continuum. Come on, Arnold. This is the ultimate field trip. Let's all go. I knew I should have stayed home today. I had to get one of those in there too. If you're not familiar with the Magic School Bus, that's basically Arnold's entire character. He hates field trips with the Frizz. Now, in Supernatural, tricksters can be killed via an iron stake to the heart. My dad makes the choice to import that over to Q, and the Frizz is rendered powerless by an iron stake to the shoulder thanks to Hellboy. The iron makes you powerless, doesn't it? The unique ionic structure of iron disrupts the bioelectrical energy field that gives you your abilities. I mean, fair, that works. However, Frizzle has another ace up her sleeve. She has imbued the children with the power of the Q already. Wanda gestures at the Doctor, who goes flying across the room and is pinned against the wall opposite to Miss Frizzle. The other children do likewise to the other League members. Finally, Wanda gestures at the stake through Miss Frizzle's shoulder and it flies out across the room. Wanda, careful! Too late. Claire is impaled by the stake. Oh no! It's okay. Claire gingerly removes the stake and heals on the spot. That's two things today I wasn't expecting. We have to be careful with our powers, don't we? We're not killers like these hunters, are we? Frizzle, I don't think you can high road the hunters when your MO here is grooming children to turn them into gods. Oh, I forgot, my dad does add an explanation for the connection to Derry beyond the red herring as to what Frizzle is. You've manipulated them. That's why you've turned up here, so you could fill these kids' heads with stories of demonic clowns and serial killers in their hometown to scare them, to fill them with fear. And now they don't have to be frightened of anything anymore. Honestly, this is kind of hard. An omnipotent being grooming kids by manipulating their fears? That's good shit. However, in this situation, it's a bit hard to climb down without a bit of a deus ex machina, so my dad employs one. The John Delancey Q arrives, having detected Q activity on Earth, and stops everything. He also returns Clark to the League, having found him in the nowhere that Frizzle sent him to. Well, 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 the Doctor. Nice to see you again, Time Lord. You too. You know this guy? We've met before. My dad knows the tried and true Doctor Who tradition of the Doctor has met gods and tricksters. No, you don't get that backstory well. Frizzle is incapacitated and vulnerable, but Sam reaches out saying he doesn't want to kill her if it can be avoided. She is given the choice to return to the continuum by Q, but she says she wants to stay. Apparently, she actually likes teaching her class. Q offers her another alternative. She can stay on Earth as a human. Q makes Frizzle human, takes away the kids' powers and their memories of anything Q related, then disappears off to the continuum. The League beat a hasty retreat to the TARDIS, but the Doctor stays behind to check after Frizzle. Do you think you'll be alright? Yes, I think so. It can't be easy being human. Good luck. He offers his hand. Miss Frizzle shakes it. I'm sure it'll be hard, but for the first time ever I can learn something. It's frightening, but exciting. Sounds good. See, there are times at which I think I'd have revised the Doctor's dialogue with the way my dad writes 10, but he pretty consistently gets the Doctor's more compassionate side right. The interest of looking after someone and giving them a second chance, even if they did something pretty insane. I think it's a quality my dad and I both look for in characters. His favorite superhero was Superman as a kid, like me, and Superman has the same kindness. The League reconvenes in the TARDIS where the Doctor announces he's got at least the scanner fixed enough that he'll know where and when they landed when they get there. And with that, the League is off to another adventure. This brings us to the end of episode 2. However, there are 10 more episodes in this series, plus an additional installment written to be feature-length. So naturally, I will go through those in due course as well, so you can all come along on the adventures of Doctor Who and his League of Extraordinary Ladies and Gentlemen. From memory, it only continues to get wilder from here. In the meantime, give a like, subscribe, all that good shit, and I will see you next time.